like to share with you several different techniques of learning and memorizing where the notes are on the bass neck. When I say notes, I mean natural notes, because I think it's important to learn where the natural notes are first, and then we can think about where the sharps and the flats are after that, after you've got a strong foundation of knowing where all the natural notes are. Now, when I say natural notes, another way to look at this is on a piano keyboard. If you think about the white keys, they're all the natural notes on the keyboard. There's no sharps or flats. All the sharps and flats are contained within the black notes, of which you have 2 black notes, then 3 black notes, and then that repeats. Which is interesting because there's a correlation and a relationship to the way the notes of the keyboard are laid out and where the notes are on the bass neck. If we look at a bass neck diagram, what we can see, especially if we look at the A string, and if we look at the notes from C to C, spanning an octave. Now, if we look at the notes C, D, and E, there are 2 gaps in between those notes. And then if we look at F, G, A, and B, there's 1, 2, 3 gaps between those notes, which is, of course, where the sharps and flats would be. But it also relates to the piano keyboard, because that's where the 2 black notes on the keyboard would be, and the 3 black notes where the keyboard would have its sharps and flats. These patterns are another way of looking at where the notes are, and it's through pattern recognition and through landmarks, as in the dots on the neck, also meaning, as in scales and arpeggios, that kind of thing. Those are the things that are going to help you remember where the notes are. Of course, there's other ways into this as well. One way in is chunking, so you just look at small areas of the neck, learn those, and then move on to the next one, and then add all that together. For instance, if you learn all the notes up to the 5th fret, you've only got 3 notes to worry about per string, and then you can move on to the next section of the neck. Another way in is looking at octaves. Where are all the C's on the neck? That kind of thing. So you're just looking at octave. Again, it's a kind of chunking. So you're just looking at A's, B's, where the C's are. So you're isolating parts of the neck in that way. Another way in is saying the notes out loud. This is known as the production effect or dual coding, because you're using several memory types all in one go. For instance, if I say the notes out loud on the E string up to the 5th fret, you get E, F, G, A. And because I'm saying them out loud, I'm using my auditory memory, my visual memory, and my kinesthetic memory. Also my semantic memory. It's like the memory for technical details, as it were. According to neuroscience, and this is where it gets interesting, the best way to learn and memorize anything is through testing and retesting. But we can't exactly write the notes on the neck and then rub them off and then write them back on again and retest ourselves that way. Or can we? Well, there is a way to do that. All we need to do is print off a neck diagram like that, with the notes of the musical alphabet written above, fret numbers, and voila, we have a high-tech interactive bass neck diagram on which, with a board pen or a board marker, we can write the notes on in different patterns and then rub them off. And again, this is combining different memory types, so this is more likely to stay with your memory. And it's the fact that you can retest yourself again and again and again. For instance, if we think about the E string up to the 5th fret, as we said, we have F, G, A. If we do the same thing for the A string, we have B, C, and D. Same thing for the D string, E, F, G, and then G, A, B, and C. So notice some notes are closer together than others, but one thing to remember is the relationship of the strings themselves, the open strings. If we think about E, A, D, G rather, what is their relationship? Well, we know the bass is tuned in fourths. What does that mean? What are fourths? How does that work? If we think about a fourth, it's a fourth away, so it's every 4th note. And if we look at our musical alphabet here, we can write that out. So if we start on E, then count up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll get A. Then from A, 1, 2, 3, 4, we get the D. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, we get the G. Suddenly, we've learnt another relationship of where these notes are on the neck. Because if we come down to our neck diagram here, we can see that works out. The G is preceded by the D, and there's the A before it, A, D, G. So that pattern of fourths is going to repeat across the neck. So another way to look at the neck is a cross. So we can come up the neck, learn the notes that way, and we can go across that way. Another way to add meaning to this, if we look at the pattern that I've just written out here, if we look at the C to C, we've got the major scale. So we've actually written out the major scale in letters. So thinking about scales in letter form and the shapes they make is another way forward into memorizing. So we can write out different scales on the neck. Another thing to notice, this is again why the keyboard's laid out the way it is between the notes B and C and E and F. As you can see, they're a semitone or half step away from each other. So every other note will be a tone, 2 semitones or a whole step away from each other. So that little cluster of notes you have here, E and F and B and C, again, you could write that out on other parts of the neck and you begin to see these patterns taking place. And of course, it's the relationship between these notes, the semitones especially, that give each scale its own particular sound. And this is going to help you memorize things. For instance, if we think about a triad on C, we know a triad is every other note. So if we look at our musical alphabet up here, we have a C, skip one, we have an E, skip one, we have a G. There's our triad, C, E and G, every other note. Thirds, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Where would that be on the neck? Well, we know E is a tone or a whole step away from D, so in goes our E. Where's a G? It's a fifth away from the C, so we could count that up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or we could say it's a third away from our E. Again, there's different ways to look at this, but again, we can write the notes on the neck, then rub them off and start again. And that is a very effective way to learn where the notes are on the neck. Well, I hope that's been of help to you, and I hope you found that interesting. And again, if you like this video, hit the like button. If you really like this video, please subscribe. And also, don't forget about Patreon and all the extra benefits there are there as well. My name's Pete. This has been The Infinite Bass. I'll see you next time.